would start by saying that efficiency has in fact not really been growing too much. So it has been quite stagnant together with productivity. The key thing to recognize is that rig count started to decrease last year in December, but there is a lag effect between when the rig count starts to decrease and when it impacts production. It takes about 8 to 9 months. So it is only now that we will start to see a deceleration in growth. And the reason why production had been growing despite this is that fracking activity or completion had remained pretty much robust. So there has been a large inventory of drilled, not fracked wells that the operators were still putting on production. But with the decrease in rig count, this inventory has decreased. So I think we will now start to see a deceleration in growth.
ألكسندر، بحسب دراساتكم فإن مشغلي حقول النفط الصخري في أمريكا زادوا من نسبة الإنفاق الرأسمالي إلى التدفقات النقدية خلال الربع الثاني من هذا العام إلى أعلى مستوى في 3 أعوام، بمعنى أنهم رفعوا من إعادة استثمار إيراداتهم في تشغيل حقولهم. هل هذا بداية انحراف شركات النفط الصخري عن سياسة الانضباط الرأسمالي لصالح التوزيعات النقدية على المساهمين التي انتهجوها في السنوات القليلة الماضية، أم أن هذا يعكس فقط تضخم تكاليف التشغيل وأسعار خدمات الحقول النفطية؟
Yes, so indeed reinvestment rates have been increasing, which is another way to say that expenditures or capex has increased while returns from sales of hydrocarbons have dropped. So I would not say it is a deviation from the so-called capital discipline. It is just a reflection of, as you mentioned, the increase in prices. So expenditures have gone up because activity has gone up, more wells, and the wells are more expensive. And at the same time, oil prices decreased this year versus last. So this ratio naturally had to go up. However, it is still lower than it was prior to COVID. So the industry is cash flow positive, unlike in most of its history. So yes, there is a reversal in this trend, but we are still very much in an era of capital discipline where operators are trying to generate more cash flow than they're spending in shale, which interestingly was not the case even 3 or 4 years ago.
بالتالي ما هي توقعاتكم لإنتاج النفط الصخري الأمريكي لهذا العام والعام المقبل؟ وهل سيتجاوز حقيقة الإنتاج الأمريكي النفطي المستوى القياسي السابق المسجل قبل الجائحة والبالغ 13 مليون برميل يوميا قبل نهاية هذا العام؟
Absolutely, Nasser. I think actually as we speak, we have probably already surpassed 13 million barrels a day, or we are about to. The latest reported official figures, there's a lag between the reports and now, are from June. 2 months have passed since June, and I think that there is sufficient evidence now to say that we are very close to 13 million barrels a day. If not now, it will be later this quarter, so definitely by the end of this year. Texas already, the largest oil-producing state in the US, has exceeded 5.5 million barrels a day, which is its all-time high, and it's keeping, going upwards. So we will probably exit the year at just above 13 million barrels a day, which would put total US at 12.8 on average in 2023. And for next year, as I mentioned earlier, we expect a slight deceleration. So we will probably hit an average of 13.4 million barrels a day. That's still a growth of over 500,000 barrels in just 1 year, with 95% of this being driven by shale and most importantly the Permian in Texas and New Mexico.
أين ترى سعر التعادل لخام غرب تكساس بالنسبة لآبار النفط الصخري الأمريكية؟ كيف تحرك سعر التعادل هذا في السنوات القليلة الأخيرة؟ وكيف يتباين هذا السعر ألكسندر ما بين حوض بيرميان العملاق والمناطق الأخرى؟
That's a very good question. Break-even prices are a very complex measure. There's a lot of factors that go into the equation. So it's hard to break it down, but it's a very convenient measure to understand what would the price of oil need to be for operators or drilling companies to make a profit at a given oil price. So nowadays, we estimate this to be at around $55, $56 on average in the United States. However, there's areas that are better and areas that are worse. Even at the individual well level, some wells will break even at $30 and some at $80, but the average is around $55, $56. The Permian itself, which is where most of the growth is coming from, is in the low 50s, $49, $50, depending on the area. However, in Bakken or Eagle Ford in North Dakota or South Texas, the legacy shale basins, we're talking more $65. Now, the absolute majority, say 90% or so of the wells in the US will generate a profit for their operators at $70 or $75 plus. Now, as you mentioned, most importantly, how has this changed over time? So if it's 55 now, it was 40 just 2 years ago. 2021 was the year with the lowest break-evens, where you had the highest productivity and lowest costs. Costs have increased over the last couple of years. Productivity has not. So the break-even prices have taken a hit of about $15. However, if you go back, say 5 years, 2018, we were at the same levels as today. And prior to these, break-evens were far higher, as you remember, 10 years ago. So essentially, break-evens went down, hit their minimum in 2021, and now we're back up to where we were 5 years ago. However, we think that we will see a stabilization now. Prices are not increasing anymore, and we have no concerns when it comes to well productivity in the next couple of years.